Hey, thanks for having me on the call, Dan. And I hope that this material is helpful for especially a lot of the newer guys that are going to be coming up in the ranks and might catch a hold of this down the road. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I didn't really see too much of in your scroll of people who've already spoken. I saw a lot of great topics on mindset and going back to the basics and just really being a professional and all those things are super important in this career. But man, one thing that's really helped transition my career with Family Heritage is just having an attitude of service over self. And so today I wanted to talk about three different ways why having an attitude of service over self can really help with not only your work habits and your attitude, but also overall in a lot more sales. And so might be a little unique perspective, but that's kind of what I wanted to hit on today, if that's okay with you. I guess that's okay with you. So here we go. I want to tell you guys a little story. So when I started with Family Heritage, I was 23 years old, and I just finished college. I had sold books door to door with a company called Southwestern, and I'll tell you what drew me to Family Heritage was the freedom and flexibility of this career. But I got to be honest with you, that freedom can be a curse or a blessing. If you've got the self-discipline to go out there and do what you're supposed to do every day, if you've got the maturity to go out there and go to work every day, then it's a wonderful thing. But man, at 23 years old, I was young and dumb and cocky and super selfish and childish. And for me, my work habits from the get-go were, hey, if I feel like going out there, I'm going to go out there. But if I don't feel like going out there, then I'm probably just going to stay home today or go hang out with my girlfriend or do something else. And so I would say the first probably 6 months of my career with Family Heritage were the most inconsistent, crazy weeks and months of my life. I think almost every other day I woke up just upset. I remember mornings just being in the fetal position, not even wanting to get out of bed because I was either so scared or nervous or whatever. And so it was an emotional roller coaster on steroids, and it's nothing I would ever want to repeat. But as I look back on those first 6 months, the underlying issue was the fact that I really only cared about myself. I really only cared about how I felt every day, what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do. And I've got 3 kids now, and that's pretty much how my kids act, at 2, 4, and 7. And I look back on that first 6 months of my career, and it's pretty darn childish. I mean, a lot of, kids do what they want to do, and they pretty much avoid what they don't want to do. And that's about it. And so I look back on my first 6 months of my career, and I pretty much just acted like a kid. And some could argue that that's pretty selfish. And so I've heard a lot of people on these calls say that what we do really matters. I know Nate Turborg, Travis Wilson, their organization is all about protecting families. And at the end of the day, that is really what we do. We go out there and we provide a service that really does help people in a time of need. And if that's your filter, if that's your perspective, then this thing is more of a mission than it is a job. It's more of a, hey, how many people can I really go impact? Then, what do I really want to do today? And so for me, it wasn't my first claim. I thought my first claim would turn everything around when I understood, how we really impacted someone. My first claim, I drove 5 hours to a different town and helped someone file a skin cancer claim. And after about 6 weeks, they got about $350. And I was like, wow, this is not life-changing right now. Since then, I've had claims in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was life-changing. There's been dozens and dozens and dozens. But man, I really thought that first claim would turn it around for me and just kind of flip a switch, but it didn't. And so I don't know what it was specifically, but it was about 6 months into my career with Family Heritage to where something finally clicked. And I realized, you know what, this is bigger than just me. And this isn't just about me. And so I don't know what triggered it, but at some point I finally adopted a mindset that what we did really did matter. And that whether I was out there protecting families or trying to recruit someone and change their life with a new career, that this was about them and it wasn't about me. And part of that might have been me growing up a little bit. Part of that might have been me maturing a little bit. But at some point, my work habits began to change. And I think it's because I started to focus on other people. And, for me, that's a big motivator. If I'm doing something and it's not impacting someone's life, I don't want to do that for a really long time. Our time here is short, and I want to spend as much time as I can making a true difference. And so that's a big motivator for me, as it is for, I think, a lot of people in this type of business. And so I would challenge you, look back on the last couple months, look back on the last couple years. If you're brand new, just really self-evaluate yourself. And if at the end of the day, most of your decisions are motivated by self, then I challenge you to start, kind of looking outside of yourself. I challenge you to start looking at the lives that you're touching every day. Sometimes I'm so jealous of these sales directors because they have an influence over dozens, if not hundreds of people, the lives they touch. It's amazing. And for them to, really not steward that influence properly, it's a shame, because they can really have a difference, make a positive impact on so many people, as many of them do. And so I think we all need to be reminded that this is a much bigger thing than ourselves. And that if we can put our focus on others, then, all the junk that we face, it doesn't really matter much anymore, because it's not about us, it's about them. And so, having an others-focused mindset really helped me with my work habits. But, man, it helped me with my attitude on a day-to-day basis. And so I remember in the first 6 months of my career, when I was out there selling, if somebody blew me off, or if somebody was a jerk, people can be stupid. People can be mean. It is what it is. We're in a people business, and you're going to run across a lot of just whack jobs. And I'll tell you, if you let every single whack job or rude person or whatever affect you, then you're probably not going to last long in this business. But again, that boils down to, are you focusing on self, or are you focusing on others? And so my first 6 months, when I was completely focused on myself, every time someone blew me off, every time someone, did something that didn't sit right with me, I stewed on it. Man, there were times I'd sit in my car for literally 10 minutes just dissecting what happened, or what went wrong, or what could I have done differently. Many of us on the phone can relate to that fact, where there's been times where we've given the perfect demo. We've given the perfect demo. Someone's had 12 people in their family go through cancer. They are rolling with dough. They just had an inheritance come in for $1 billion. I mean, everything's teed up for the biggest, best sale in the world. And at the end, they give you this crazy excuse of, well, I'm not a big fan of ultraviolet light. It's like, what? What? Where did that come from? Like, what are you even talking about? And I remember those times sitting in my car for 30 minutes thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Like, they should have bought, everything was right. This is so stupid. And we've all had those moments. And I'll tell you, when it's about us, and when it's about our sales, and it's about our organization, and it's about our business, then we spend so much unnecessary time stewing, wondering, worrying, you fill in the blank. And so I remember, 6 months into this thing, around that time, I realized, man, I can keep being miserable majority of my days out here, or I can flip a switch and figure out, not how to not let these people get to me. And, I think people, end up having to do that in this business, but I think they end up going about it the wrong way. I think the wrong way of doing that is to kind of put a shield around your heart, and to put a shield around yourself, to where you're basically, nothing can affect you, and you bottle everything up. And I think those people become ticking time bombs down the road. I don't think that's the best way to deal with it. For me, my experience, and I've seen a lot of others, I think the best way to deal with that is to really just focus on blessing other people and helping other people. And so clearly, when someone blows you off, and you've been with them for a matter of 2 minutes, you're not helping them by protecting them with a policy. But man, one way you can help them is by, blessing them when you leave, by giving them a genuine compliment, not out of sarcasm or spite. I remember early in the business, I wanted to wear a shirt on the front of myself that said, I'm out here protecting families. But if someone blew me off, on the back of the shirt, it was going to say something much, much worse. But I thought, man, that's not going to be helpful to people. And so, I can't count, how many times in the last 10 years where I have been blown off. But, I get in my car and I immediately just forgive that person. I literally forgive them so that they don't affect me, and I can keep going down the road. There's been times where, people don't make sense in a demonstration, but you can tell they've just been, having a hard day, or, maybe even a hard life. And I'll take about 2 or 3 minutes and genuinely compliment them. Guys, people are hungry for people that care. And, I get the whole, adage, people don't care how much you know until you know how much you care. I get all that stuff, but everyone needs to check their heart. If the purpose of why they're showing care and concern and really trying to, do good for others is only to get something in return, I think people will sense that. They'll really get that over time. And I think that'll be a disservice to you. But if at the end of the day, you genuinely really just care about people and you like people and you love people and you want to help people, then there's going to be a lot of things you do in this business, a lot of things you do, and you never get anything in return. And that's okay. That's a great thing. And so I see some people on this call, I look at Dan Lehane, and I remember early in this business, I looked up to Dan because I remember so many times just how much he'd help his new recruits, whether it be train more expenses, whether it be gas, whether it be, helping out with a little bill here and there because they were struggling. I mean, if anyone ever took account of how much Dan has helped the people in his organization, I think their jaws would drop. I don't know that number. I don't know that amount. I don't know the time. I don't know the concern, but it's amazing. If you look at other guys who, might not have the money, but man, the time they've poured in, the extra phone calls they've taken, the prayers that they've had behind the scenes, just interceding for these people in their organization. I mean, there's some people that genuinely care about people in this business, and that's a great thing. And do you get burned? Yes. Does it hurt? Yes. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's about other people. And so if you can really adopt those types of habits, it's really hard to come home and not feel good about your day and not feel good about yourself, because you really are making a difference in someone's life. And so the last thing I'd tell you, because everyone cares about sales, especially all these newer guys on the call, because you need to make them. You need to make sales to, make this a career. But man, when you can focus on others, over time, it's going to really increase your sales. And again, that's not a manipulative thing. That's not a, I give this and I get that and blah, blah, blah. But man, I've been that guy that's, been so close to a bonus, and I'm sitting in a sales presentation, and you can tell I don't care about the people across the table from me. I don't care about anything. All I care about is that bonus, man. I want the money. And man, some of those presentations are the worst in the world. And I never thought of myself as a hard closer, but man, there's been times where I'm on the line and I'm like, man, this isn't me talking right now. This is not me. And that wasn't the normal me. That was greedy me. That was, I need to hit my bonus me. And so, most of those sales, if they even happen, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to cancel. They're probably going to, back out down the road. And so, when you have an attitude of, hey, I'm just here to help this person, I'm going to do my best to show them something that can really impact their family over time, and then I'm going to leave the rest in their court. When that's your mindset in every presentation, you build the biggest buying atmosphere that the world's ever seen. When people genuinely understand that you're there to help and you don't give a flip as to whether or not they buy or not, the reality is majority of people are going to buy in that kind of situation. That's not your motivation to do it. Hopefully your motivation to do it is you're really out there just to help people. But that's the reality. When you really don't care and you're there to help people, you build an environment that's so just safe for them. It's so trusting and trustworthy for them that, more oftentimes than not, then they are going to see our product for what it is. And it's a great deal, and it's going to help people, and they're going to get on board with it. And so, if you can focus on others, even when you're selling, then I think over time it's going to lead to a lot more sales. Those people are going to refer you to people. They're going to appreciate how you treated them. They're going to appreciate your professionalism. The people that really care might even take the next step of following up with them. I know Dan Janjigan sends, really nice cards to, every single one of his clients on a pretty consistent basis. And, it's one thing to send one little handwritten note after someone buys. It's another thing to send a couple emails, but, Dan's gone above and beyond, and he sends a really nice card with pictures of him and his family and updates. And it's amazing. And I'll run into some of his clients accidentally from time to time, and they'll say, well, Dan's my guy. I still get cards from Dan. Dan's my guy. And people like that, kind of service. And we pay for that, and that's just our way of showing we really care about people. And so I'm hoping that this overall concept helps you guys, because I know it's helped me in this business, not just with Family Heritage, but, kind of life in general. And so if we can really get back to focusing on others and stop focusing on ourselves all day, every day, I think a lot of great things will happen.
Awesome, Jack. We had a couple questions come in. If you've got time for a couple questions, let me shoot these off to you. Patrick had asked, how do you make the shift from ourselves to others? Like, what would you recommend as far as making that shift?
I think from a practical standpoint, is Patrick in sales or team building?
He's doing both.
He's doing both. So on a sales level, I would challenge Patrick. Literally every time he gets out of his car, or approaches a business, or approaches a referral, or whatever, literally making it a habit from the second he gets out of his car to start thinking and telling himself, hey, this is about the person I'm about to go see. And I'm assuming Patrick's been in the business long enough now to not really have to think about what he's supposed to say. And once you've been here at least a couple months and you've given 100 presentations, you don't have to think about what you're supposed to say anymore. You can be present with people. And when you're at that point where you can be present with people, then you got to just make a mental shift that, man, this whole conversation is about them. It's about them and it's not about me. And so as you're asking about their history, you got to care about their history. It's not a means to an end. You got to care about it. When you ask them, how they're doing and what's going on, you got to care about it. It might lead to some follow-up conversations about, what's going on in their world. Families are really being affected right now by this season of this global pandemic. And in the conversations, I've had about 30 presentations in the last 6 weeks. That's not a ton, but, things are different right now. And, just families are hurting. They're scared. They're concerned. Jobs are being lost. It's uncertain. It's weird. And so, take the time to ask and care. And then, if they're not tracking with you, it's not like a rush to get out because I'm on a time crunch and I got to go catch the next person. It's have a smooth, exit and make it a point to find something to compliment them on. That's a simple, practical tactic. Find something that you can genuinely compliment them on, whether they buy or they don't buy. I think people, they don't get a lot of positive affirmations. And so that's a practical tip. Look for something that you can genuinely compliment them about, especially when they're not interested, especially when they've already told you no and you're leaving. Find a way to make their day better. I've left homes where people are just broken and this isn't for everybody, but I take the opportunity whenever I can to pray with them right there on the spot. And man, there's some people that are baffled by that. They're baffled by it. I have nothing in return. I get nothing in return when someone's already said I'm not interested and I'm trying to minister to their pain. There's nothing, I get nothing in return for that. And so find ways to give without getting anything in return. And I think as you begin to do that 2, 3, 5 times a day, it just starts to snowball. Your attitude's going to change. Your mindset's going to change. And you might actually start enjoying what you're doing because, believe it, in 11 years, there's been plenty of times in this career where I haven't enjoyed it and I've had to push through. But keeping my focus on others really helps with that.
For her, she struggles with finding that balance between, caring and closing, right? In a short period of time. You're only there with a client for a really short period of time. How do you balance that out where it's still real? You're not kind of rushing through that experience.
That's a great question. So at the end of the day, if people aren't purchasing our policies, then we're not protecting them with anything. And so there definitely is an element of, hey, there's got to be a transaction made with a lot of people to, really help people with what we do. If all I did was go out there and give 6 to 8 presentations every day and just make other people's days better, that would be great. And that's a great thing. But if I never made any sales, I couldn't do that for, 3 months. And so, we got to make sales in this business too. And that's fine. And so I think that balance is you got to understand that, the way you help people is by protecting them with these policies. That doesn't mean you have to twist their arms in order for them to buy. You don't have to hard close them. Our products sell themselves. But you've got to sell policies in order to help protect families with this, business. And so, if you're with a family and you've tried closing 3 or 4 times, in a respectful manner and in a persistent and polite manner, and they're not with you, then you do need to move on. And the right thing to do there is to say, well, hey, I've you know, in your mind, I've done all I can, and you know, this is just wasn't the right fit, and you know, but there's thousands of other people that I need to go talk to. And so I think you get a better gauge of that over time. But if you've really given it your best shot 3 or 4 times to try to bring them to a point of a decision and they're still not with you, then it's probably time to pack up and start a whole brand new relationship with the next person.
That's a great answer. Hamadi, I'm turning it over to you for a second.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Jack, I just wanted to give you a shout out, man, a personal shout out, because you made such an impact on me personally in this business. And I know I speak for probably half the people on this call. Like, you know, I think I was with you your first or second week in the business. We worked together in the field, and then I left the business for a while, and I came back, and I remember you were with me my very first train where I was back after like a 4-year absence, and I was having breakfast. So I went and followed somebody on Monday to kind of get my feet wet. And on Tuesday, I went out and worked by myself all day. And I was just ready to tear it up, man. I was fired up. I'd been gone for 4 years, and I was like, I'm ready to slay this beast, you know. And I went out and had a 0 day, and and I worked my butt off for a 0 day, and I was just so upset. And I remember the next morning for breakfast, you know, I sat down in the cafeteria in that hotel, and you came over and sat down next to me, and you were like, man, are you okay, man? Something seems off. And I was like, oh man, you know, I just got my butt kicked yesterday. I'm just mad. It's going to be different today. They're going to see. I'm going to be different today, you know? And you were like, oh man, well, sounds like Eric, just like one of those character building days, man. And I just got so mad, and I looked at you and I was like, Jack, man, I've been in this business a long time, man. I've trained a lot of people. You know, I've got all the character I need, man. I don't need any more character. I'm here to make money, you know? Do you remember this conversation?
Totally.
Yeah. And you said something I'll never forget. It has changed my life. And you just said, you know, Eric, you know, you've written over 10,000 in a day. I have, you know, we've written many Eagles, you know, and you said, Eric, I've spent all that money. And, you know, but the character that I got from days like the one that you just had, well, that's made me into the man I am today, right now. And I just was like, I was just floored. And I've been floored. Even telling that story right now, I have chills because I'm floored again by just, man, your heart and who you are. And you're just a living example of, you know, the big picture in life is not a self-portrait. It's about other people, and put your eyeballs out on the people and be of service. And I love that about you, man. And I love you. And I'm so happy you're on the call today. And Dan, thank you for letting me give this shout out.